This is Trevor Benko, CEO of TGB Supplements.
This is Ben Jordan.
Today we're going to do a video talking about Kratom. It's kind of a controversial herbal supplement, I guess you could say, nowadays. It was almost banned once by the DEA. It went up to be put on the banned substance list and ended up getting withdrawn at the last minute because there was a lot of signatures, a lot of people saying that it shouldn't be put on that list because it is a natural substance and it has a lot of potential positive effects. So we're going to get into the positives and negatives. I guess we'll start out with some of the negatives, at least what they say are the negatives of Kratom,
right,
and go on from there.
Like we were saying, Kratom's relatively new. It's been used in many years in Southeast Asia as like an anti-diarrheal medicine, painkiller.
Yeah, I mean it's been around for a long time. Just not, it's new to us, I guess. It's just kind of become popular recently with the opiate epidemic in the United States. So now,
wasn't it 2015 it started to get prevalent?
I think like 2014
okay,
is when it became more popular. But I think it was available, I want to say maybe late 2011 is when it first started coming into the U.S. But it's been used for many years in Asia and Malaysia, where it's grown. A lot of the workers use it. They'll chew on the leaves. It actually gives you energy, and it can also help with the pain relieving effects, so it makes you work harder.
Yeah, milder dosages of it can give you a little bit of a stimulatory effect. Once you start to get in the upper ranges of it, that's when you can get that opioid-like effect with the pain killing.
Yeah, you can almost get more of a down, a lethargic type of feeling. It can help with the pain relief, and it can help with sleep. Just makes you a little more tired at that point. Kratom is one of those drugs that's pretty hard to detect, at least right now. Most drug tests do not detect it, though I'm sure there are certain tests out there that could. A lot of people like it for that reason, especially people that maybe are on probation or may have gotten in trouble. This is something that they can kind of get around the system a little bit, if you would say, as of right now. A lot of athletes use this, believe it or not. It's become very popular with bodybuilders. Bodybuilders have a lot of pain. Painkillers have been always a big thing with bodybuilders. It's a very dangerous thing to mix with steroids, of course. But Kratom is a safer, natural alternative. Doesn't seem to have as many
drawbacks.
Yeah, negative effects. And it can actually help help you train harder, help you recover from your workouts. It can help lower cortisol after your training. So it's definitely been being used by bodybuilders as well.
Yeah, it's more popular with like the younger crowd, like we were saying, of the access and availability for what it does.
Yeah, the reason why I guess you could say the government doesn't really like this, and it has very similar effects to illegal painkillers or prescription painkillers, and they'll say that it's dangerous, that it can be a dangerous drug. But since 2011, I think there was 35 deaths from Kratom that were linked to Kratom, and most of those deaths were in combination with other drugs. If you're taking Kratom and you're taking benzos like Xanax or Valium, stuff like that, if you're drinking alcohol or if you're mixing it with opiates or heroin, yeah, you're going to have a very high risk that something could happen. But actual Kratom by itself, there has been very little, if any, known deaths out there of just plain Kratom itself, like the leaf. I'm not talking about the extracts, the more potent stuff, just the actual leaf itself, which is usually the way it's found is in a powdered leaf form. You can either put it in capsules or make it into a tea. There's a bunch of different ways of using it, actually.
The guys from like Malaysia and Thailand, they actually chewed on the leaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're afraid that the drug could be abused, for sedative type effects or stimulating effects, and that it could cause euphoria. So when you have anything that makes you feel good like that, the government tends to shy away from it normally. Some of the side effects they claim would be like edginess, nervousness, vomiting, but I've never seen anybody get that.
No, it should have some healing properties.
Yeah.
For the intestines.
I mean, edginess, maybe if you take a lot, just like, if you take any prescription painkiller, most of them are going to make you edgy when they wear off. That's very common. Nausea. Now, that can happen because you can, depending on your dose, you may be ingesting a large amount of plant material, which could cause a little bit of an upset stomach.
Right. Sweating, itching, some constipation, that can be prevalent.
Yeah, and that's due to it being, stimulating the opiate receptor. Any opiates cause constipation in higher doses. Some people worse than others. So, this is very mild in comparison to opiates as far as the constipation.
Like we touched on earlier, you can get some lethargy, some respiratory depression, meaning it kind of hinders your oxygen efficiency a little bit. Tremors, aggressive behavior, which that's more of like the withdrawal type symptoms.
Yeah. They even say hallucinations or paranoia. Those are some of the things they use to try to, tell you the negative effects. They say that it can be potentially addictive, which, anything I think can be addictive in high doses for a prolonged period of time, even sugar, stuff like that. But at the same time, I think it's very mild in comparison to opiate type drugs. Very mild, like allergies or a mild cold compared to the worst flu you've ever had in your entire life. So some of the things they're saying that come along with the addiction of kratom could be like loss of sexual desire, loss of weight. You could get darkening of your skin, cravings, but
probably more so they are desiring what the drug did for them, other than that physical addiction to it.
Yeah, I mean, and in comparison, if you were addicted to any opiates or heroin, you're not going to have much of a sex drive. It destroys your testosterone. Most of these addicts, that are addicted, don't even think about sex because they're too worried about trying to get the drug to feel okay. So in comparison, I mean, it's very, very, very mild in my personal opinion. Withdrawal effects, would include diarrhea, muscle pain, some tremors, restlessness or restless leg syndrome,
depression,
crying,
sadness, low overall sense of well-being, mood,
panic or anxiety, maybe some mood swings, irritability. But once again, those are pretty much exactly what you're going to get with opiates, except multiplied. So still,
Right. And a lot of these things, that could be somebody who has been using, you know what I mean, and they just have that side effect and it's correlated together with it.
Yeah, because they may be trying to get off of painkillers or, opiates, and maybe they're trying to use kratom to do that, and they may be noticing some of these symptoms while on the kratom, but it's actually the opiates getting out of their system.
That's one flaw with any pharmaceutical testing, with any medicine. They have to, if somebody's in the trial, they have to list any side effect or anything that they have going on at that time, whether it's vomiting, diarrhea, what have you. They have to list that as a effect that they've noticed while they're taking that drug. So not all the time can you say this is a definitive reason or something that's going to happen with it.
Yeah. So our personal experiences with kratom, we both used kratom. I've used it more than Ben. I had been addicted to opiates at one point, so I know what that's all about. And for me, the kratom totally took away withdrawal symptoms where I could feel normal, when normally I'd be sick and super, pain, pain that just touching the skin, that wind blowing would hurt. You can't sit down, you're restless, vomiting, diarrhea, the whole thing. And if I would take a dose of kratom, that would all go away and I'd feel normal, and it would last much longer, more like I'd say 4 to 7 hours compared to like 2 to 4 hours with an opiate, just as far as not having those symptoms. It definitely helped. The one thing I was leery of is just taking that much of a plant that you don't really know what's all in it, because there's other things in it. It's not just one compound. There's a few compounds and they're not very well understood yet. So and you read all these crazy things. So for me, it was a little bit scary just to try it out, especially not knowing if it would help with the withdrawal or not. But I was very surprised, and as I started to experiment with it, the more I started to like it. As far as I was really shocked that there was a plant out there that could actually stop the withdrawal from these potent opiate drugs. So I was very impressed.
Yeah, mine, I used a little bit milder dosages. I got some nice energy production off of it. Like we were saying, you get a little bit of a stimulatory effect. And the biggest thing was like joint aching and pain. That helped a lot with my my joint pain.
Yeah, and it helps you work. It keeps you kind of focused in the zone. It's almost like marijuana. There are different strains that do different things. So white vein is going to give you a little more energy. Red vein is going to be a little more for pain. There's ballet strain, Mung Da, which is a little bit of energy plus the pain relief. It's one of the more popular ones. And then there's also extracts, which get even more potent. And that's some of the extracts. I think you need to be careful. And the way they're extracted, and they could be more potent. You could end up taking more than what you're anticipating, and that's where some risk comes in, I believe. But if it was, if it was studied more, you could be more exact about your dosing, and you would know how much you need. If the government would, actually support this research and try to help out and make it more, you'd make it safer, pretty much. So there have been some studies done on kratom. So we're going to get into some of the positive effects and some of the research that's been done. As to say, why this could be so beneficial. Pretty much, when you take any other opiate, it's going to work on the body over, in the beginning it works well. And over a period of time, your body starts to get used to these painkillers like Oxycontin, Percocets, Vicodin, and so on. And you need more to relieve the same amount of pain. So ideally, you would want a pain reliever that you don't need to constantly increase the dose, that doesn't have the fatal respiratory depression that you get with Oxycontin and so on at high doses. The more you take, the more it depresses your respiration, it slows down your heart, and your body actually becomes used to that and starts to make changes. And that's why you start to become constipated as well. Everything slows down. So kratom almost fits into this perfectly. It's almost like the holy grail from what they've done so far in research-wise to do this. It doesn't have that extreme euphoria that you get with other opiates, but it does make you feel good. It kind of calms you down and helps with the relief of pain.
And there's less of the common side effects like the itchiness, the constipation, the addictive properties as well.
Yeah. So that's kind of why they started doing more research into this, and that research had a lot to do with why they didn't ban it most recently when they were trying to make it a scheduled drug. So without the legal access, it would kind of limit a lot of the research that they're trying to do. It would pretty much grind all that to a halt, where you would have very, very little progress, and it would slow things down. And we need that research more than ever right now with the epidemic being as bad as it is.
Which is unfortunate because they really wouldn't want a natural alternative for people.
Which, like Ben said, is very unfortunate. So with these leaves, they can also give you energy, like we had said, which is another benefit. That really helps you be productive and get things done.
And that's in lower doses.
Yeah. Now, once you get into the higher doses, if you have severe pain, depending on the strain, though, if you take a white vein, you'll still get the energy because kratom is a cousin of the coffee plant. So it does have that energy effect. And it's not like a caffeine. It's a little bit different. So the two primary compounds in kratom that really give you that opiate-like effect would be the mitridine spinosa and the 7-hydroxymitrinine, as well as there's one more, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the mitridine pseudonoxyl, if I pronounce that correctly.
Yes, pseudonoxyl, I think it's called, which is like the fermented version of kratom. So.
Yeah, they're almost unrelated to a typical opioid, so that's what makes them kind of less addictive as well.
Yeah, and that's really the difference, is how they act on the opiate receptor is very unique. So they're binding to the mu opioid receptor, which is that right? The mu?
Mm-hmm.
I believe it.
Pretty sure.
So there's 3 different types of opioid receptors in the brain, and this one, the way kratom binds is a very unconventional type of way. It's more of like a hybrid, so it almost acts like a natural version of Suboxone, because it binds to the receptor, but only partially, so it activates it, but it doesn't allow it to be fully turned on like a full-blown opiate or like an oxycodone would, which that's what causes a lot of these side effects, a lot of the problems.
Yeah, so the mitridine molecules, they typically bind to only the good receptors, so that leads to less of the unwanted side effects.
Yeah, they give you most of the benefits without the negatives is pretty much
kind of like the SARMs would compared to pro-hormones.
Yeah, or a steroid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. So there are companies out there doing research. I think Teva is one of them right now.
Pretty sure.
doing some research on this, and they're probably going to try to make this into a synthetic form. I would assume that's pretty much what they do with most of these types of plants, which is unfortunate. So they noticed in the research that the fermented kratom compound, the mitronine pseudodoxyl, is unlike most of the other drugs that they're looking at. It also blocks off another opioid receptor, which is kind of what I was talking about with the partial binding and blocking it at the same time. So it's blocking the delta receptor, and that's what really kind of got them excited, I guess, with the research.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. If it could block both the delta receptor and produce a good result on that mu receptor, that it might be better than any other pain-killing type drug that's on the market.
Yeah, currently, so I guess in an attempt they're trying to. What they were doing was an experiment with some. They were using mice to experiment on. So they would give them like a morphine, and they would put them on a hot plate to see how long the pain relieving effects would last. And I believe it was, I want to say, was it 7 days?
Mm-hmm.
7 days they were saying?
Yep.
Well, the kratom, or the fermented form of the kratom, was lasting up to 30 days, which is a huge, advantage over your typical pain relievers. So that's the mitronine pseudodoxyl.
Yep. And they had a lot less withdrawal symptoms from that one as well.
And they also said that they believed it to be non-addictive,
Mm-hmm.
which is a huge statement.
That is the holy grail of any type of painkiller. If you could get the desired results with any addictive properties, I'm sure some people, they would give up a little bit of, say, itchiness or constipation to not have that addictive property.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so, it's a powerful painkiller with less of an addictive potential and a lot less deadly side effects.
And lower withdrawal.
Yeah, and the withdrawal is huge, because once you get addicted to something like this, you may never be able to get through that withdrawal, especially if you continue to have pain for a long period of time. And it also, a big thing is that there's a very, very minimal amount of the respiratory suppression, which they say could save thousands of lives. I mean, a lot of people with the withdrawal, what actually kills them is the respiratory depression. So,
Yeah, I mean, the DEA, they're kind of trying to slam it and place it in like a psychoactive ingredient of the agency's scheduling. I mean, hopefully that won't go through.
Yeah, hopefully that's not going to happen. We'll be able to continue to work together and sign petitions and try to show them what kind of benefits people are getting from kratom. I mean, I've known numerous people that have gotten off of opiates using just kratom itself, and if we had a place that if there was research done to know what's the safe dose, how much to use, it would be much safer. I don't think there would be any issues if it was done in a doctor type environment.
Right. And if they didn't shun it or make the availability harder, you know what I mean, more people would probably be more predisposed to give that a try.
Yeah, and there'd be more research out there. So I think I was saying earlier there was 35 deaths from 2011 till now, and I believe there was 15 related deaths between 2014 and 2016, which is very minute. I mean, if you compare that to pharmaceutical drugs, not even opiates, I'm talking your beta blockers, your blood pressure medication, stuff like that, you're probably getting more deaths from those type of drugs than what you're getting from kratom.
Right.
It's very, very mild. And like I said, most of those deaths were probably with other drugs, or maybe it was tainted itself. The kratom powder may have been tainted with some other drug, like a tramadol. I know that was a case, one of the cases I read, with somebody that had passed because it had tramadol in it, and that ended up causing a bad reaction.
Yeah, I mean, some people, they could be thinking they're getting kratom, but they're getting something else. They don't really know.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. If they made it more available and they studied it more, people would have a better chance of getting a more pure product.
Yeah. The mitronine itself seems to be a fairly weak drug in comparison on its own. It's 55 times less potent than morphine as far as the pain relief goes. But, for some people, it's enough. It's enough to get through the pain. And the other compound, the 7-hydroxymitronine, or mitronine, is about 6 times more potent than morphine. And so there's only small amounts of that in the plant itself.
Yeah, I think it only makes up 2%.
Yeah, it's very, very mild. But that's how, you get that positive effect.
Right. obviously extracts could have more of that desired active in it.
And there could be other alkaloids in there, causing, what would you call that, like a synergistic type of effect.
Yep.
Maybe, that's something that we could get into with more research,
Right.
if that's allowed to take place.
Yep.
So at the very least, I think it's very frustrating that the government is trying to push something like this under the rug when it could really be a huge advancement right now, especially with the opioid epidemic in our country. It could help a lot of people. It could prevent people from getting hooked on methadone or even Suboxone, which can be very difficult to come off because of the long half-lives. So once you're on Suboxone or methadone, it takes a long time to get off of that because it stays in your system for 30 days. Withdrawal from heroin might be 7 to 14 days of intense withdrawal and then a mild withdrawal after that. But when you're on methadone, it's 30 days of intense withdrawal or more, and most people just can't make it through that. And this is where Kratom could even help them, wean off of that. So it has a lot of potential value, and in my mind, it's very similar to marijuana. I'm a very big supporter of both. I think they both have a lot of positive effects, and it's unfortunate that we're not able to utilize them as much as we could be able to, had they been scheduled properly, or unscheduled, I should say. So
yeah, there's probably a lot of other benefits that they could get from Kratom if they would study it more.
Yeah, and maybe even some of the other alkaloids, maybe not for the painkilling, but other effects like an antioxidant type of effects. It's a lot of fiber, a lot of benefits. So if you're on the fence about Kratom, I would say definitely do your own research, look into it, and if you're gonna give it a try, just be careful. Try to look into quality sources, places to get it. You can still find them out there as of now. So certain states it's already illegal, so just have to do your own research and see what happens. But I'm a fan of it, and I hope that it stays legal. So hope this helps you guys out, gives you a little bit of information, and gives you our opinion on it. We got more videos coming soon.